Hey guys! So I initially thought about doing a blog post for this, but this is something that I think is very easily misinterpreted or misunderstood in text, and I thought maybe it's better to do a video so that I can avoid any misunderstandings in regards to my tone of voice in this. The thing is, there's this post that's been circulating for, I think about a week now, in which a person wrote a post, and the post said something along the lines of, even though emotional support animals aren't service dogs, technically they are. And this sparked a lot of debate over legal technicalities and technical wording because, as I'm sure most of us know, emotional support animals legally are very, very different from service dogs. Mainly starting with the fact that multiple animals can be emotional support animals, hence the animals instead of dogs, because, for example, cats can also be considered an emotional support animal, whereas service dogs are dogs and I believe in some cases small ponies. And service dogs have public access rights and emotional support animals don't. And emotional support animals aren't trained in a task. They just provide, literally, as the name says, emotional support. That is the law as it stands, the definition. Now, whether or not we agree or disagree with that law is something entirely different. And the fact is that when I went to this person's blog, the original poster's blog, I got the impression that they weren't saying that they misunderstood the law as it was, they were just simply disagreeing with it. And I think that's fine. To be perfectly honest, I disagree with it too. I believe that there are so many people who don't have a disability in the legal sense but would benefit from having an emotional support animal with them when they're out in public, where the dogs or the animal's only task is literally to provide emotional support. I would argue that I believe emotional support in and of itself is actually a task. Now, I know there's a lot of people who are probably going to disagree with me on that, and that's fine. It's not really about that right now. What I feel the need to point out is this attitude that some people had regarding emotional support animals. I am continually surprised at how many people talk about emotional support animals and use the words glorified pet. That bothers me for a lot of reasons. Because as someone who has needed a psychiatric support service dog, as someone who has needed a psychiatric service dog, I have had to deal with a lot of backlash from people who have accused me of making a big deal out of nothing, who act like invisible disabilities aren't real or not serious enough to warrant a service dog, because unless you have a physical disability, apparently you don't really need a service dog. They don't think that the tasks that service dogs who they don't think the tasks that psychiatric service dogs provide are legitimate enough. They don't think you're disabled enough. And this attitude that someone isn't sick enough or not disabled enough is so sickening to me. It really is. I mean, who are you to judge how sick someone is, or how much they need help, or whether or not they're really benefiting from something? I can't wrap my head around how sad that is to get upset over something so stupid and to tell someone you're not sick enough to need this dog to help you, and that you're making a big deal out of nothing, and that the tasks they're providing for you aren't serious enough. And the very same people who have to listen about how their psychiatric service dog isn't legit enough turn around and point at emotional support animals and say, that's just a glorified pet. That's not anything serious. That animal's not doing anything for you. Stop comparing your emotional support animal to my service dog. You're not really disabled, so you don't need a service dog. I just have nothing, no words come to mind. It's so unnecessarily judgmental and so hateful. It's just hateful to argue over legal technicalities and put people down for what they need or for how they feel about the animal that is providing so much help to them in so many different ways, to stand there and say, okay, yeah, but the law says this. Like, I understand what the law says. Don't get me wrong. I know what the law says. I'm disagreeing with the law because, believe it or not, the law is not always right. Sometimes it needs to be changed. And no, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that emotional support animals do have public access rights, because no, they don't. But I think they should. And to sit there and tell someone who's saying that I think they should have public access rights and just harp over and over and over again on the point, saying, well, but they don't. That's not what we're saying. We're saying, yes, they don't, but they should. Because there are so many people who don't have a disability, but the quality of their life is so enhanced by having their emotional support animal there with them, and it makes them brave. Having that animal there makes them brave enough to go out and order a cup of coffee. I mean, do you have any idea how taxing it can be to be afraid to stand in line at Starbucks and order a drink? How devastatingly difficult it can be, and how afraid you can be. And sometimes the only task that you need your dog to do is to stand there with you and remind you that you're not alone. And remind you that it's okay. And that no matter how many eyes in the room are staring at you and maybe judging you, they won't. And they're there for you. And to stand there and to tell someone who needs that they're not disabled enough or sick enough is just... I don't get it. I really don't. So, if everyone could just stop telling people they're not sick enough, or they're not disabled enough, or that they're wrong because the law says this, and just listen to them and understand why they feel the way that they do, and understand this stigma that surrounds mental illness of any kind, and any kind of invisible illness that we can't perceive with our eyes. Just listen to them and understand how they feel. Understand how we feel. The thing is, they talk about invisible illnesses and how you can't see. You know, if you would take 5 minutes and listen to them, you would see it. You would see it in their eyes. You would see it in their entire body language as their body stiffens up and their eyes get big and they're afraid. And they're hurting. But you don't listen. Educating should first and foremost be a service to people. You're supposed to be providing a service. That's why we call it a public service announcement. But people aren't serving other people. They're just going online and telling people how wrong they are and correcting them. Educate people, but do it with kindness and just a little bit of compassion. I don't think that's too much to ask for. Just walk a mile, walk a day, walk 5 minutes in someone else's shoes, and then tell them you don't think they're sick enough. They don't need help in any way.